The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to TechGig webinar series, our endeavor to empower techies. We believe that sharing of knowledge is the key to enhance our skills and grow us as professionals. With this principle in mind, we've initiated a series of webinars conducted by industry experts to give you all a crisp insight of various domains. The topic of today's session is using big data analytics in today's dynamic business environment. Our guest speaker today is Amol Bhaskar Mahamuni. He is a Program Director GTS at IBM India Private Limited. Amol has over 25 years of industry experience and has been with IBM for the last 19 years. Starting with research, he has been with India Software Lab since its inception and has played key leadership roles across products portfolio in growing the lab to its current level. In his current role, Amol leads big data and automation as part of competency management at IBM GTS. Earlier, he was responsible for IBM Pure Application Systems product management and business development. Amol managed Software Group WebSphere brand application infrastructure portfolio, including Java Technology Center, mobile products, and WebSphere application server portfolio, which is key component for all of IBM SWG middleware. Within application integration and middleware portfolio, his earlier job role included managing IBM Telecom product portfolio development, WebSphere Commerce Portfolio, Platform Technology Center, and distributed CIS/CS transaction processing. Over the past decade, he managed various software group and systems group projects at IBM Software Lab, including Linux Technology Center, Tivoli Products, WebSphere Business Components, and ISL Solutions Lab. Amol began his career in research at Defense Research and Development Organization, DRDO, and then Indian Space Research Organization, ISRO, for initial 6 years of his career, after a brief stint in academia as faculty. Pursuing his interest in networking and systems, he moved on to IBM US, working on networking and device drivers before moving back to India in late 2000. Amol has master degree in electronics and communication from IIT BHU from 1989 batch. He is IBM certified project manager at IBM India. So without further delay, I introduce you all to our guest speaker. Over to you, Amol.
Hey, thanks, Deepika. So if you can give me the presentation access, there you go. So thanks, Deepika. Thanks for the introduction, and thanks for the opportunity as well. It's going to be so exciting, and next 45 minutes as I give you a glimpse and overview of big data and analytics. You can type your questions, and I'll get it in the sequence that it gets. I plan to wrap it up in around 45 minutes, and the last maybe 15 minutes we'll have a question and answer session. So you can send in a question, and I'll read it out for you once I get in my chat window. I hope the voice quality is okay, and I'll kind of proceed from here. So what I'm going to talk about is my first slide, which is what's the newest of the natural resources. And we in IBM, under the Global Technology Outlook, we believe if somebody has to gaze at a crystal ball and say, where is it that I'm going to place my biggest bets on, that is on big data. So we call it sometimes big data is big ROI. And of course, the whole analytics, which is concerning the big data. So as I really go through the overview of the big data and analytics, I'll first talk about what is the whole sample space over here, what's the universe, and what has changed over the last maybe a decade or so. So what you see over here as the next wave of opportunity, that is where I said if one has to gaze at a crystal ball, there is a lot of euphoria about the whole CAMS initiative. So those of you who are already aware of it, it's cloud analytics, mobile, social, and security. So we are really looking at these technologies coming together, which is going to change the lives in which we live today and certainly going to change the lives in which we're going to live tomorrow. So actually it's happening around us, and quite often you might have noticed that these are the things which are happening in either the commerce business, the banking and financial. It could be a fraud management. It does happen at the port of entry from an intelligence business perspective, or it could be any of the analytics that we use today. For instance, yesterday's visit on the Republic Day, you would have seen so much of data being generated, maybe on a Facebook, maybe on Twitter, on YouTube, what have you. On all of these social media, any of these digital media, I would say, is exponentially growing, and it is growing at the rate of nearly 44 times. So over the last decade, I'm just talking of the last decade, since the advent of the digital electronics, the digital data, we're looking at the compounded annual growth rate of close to about 18 to 19% at which the data is growing. So gone are the days in which, when I started first working, we worked on a Z80 or 8086 processors, which had 640 kilobytes of the total RAM, right? It sounds ridiculous today because on your mobiles you probably have 2 GB RAMs now. So we're looking at the applications which has grown to an extent which is data hungry, and the data which is generated is not being measured in the terabytes today. It's rather measured in exabytes and is going towards petabytes. So exabyte, if I have to just put a very little definition next to it, it is 10 to the power 21 bytes, and that's the volume of data that we're really talking about. But it's not just the volume of data. I mean, if you really look at this graph over here, just about 5 years back in 2009, we were looking at something like 800,000 petabyte of data, which in the next few years, maybe next 5 years, is going to grow to 35 zettabytes. Now, the not so good news in this entire data explosion is that, unfortunately, it's not all of the structured data. The structured data is your banking transaction, it's any of the commerce transaction that you do, any of the airline reservations that you do. But when you talk of an unstructured data, it is all of the logs which are generated, all of the videos that you have, all of the photographs that you have, any of the text that you write in your Twitter or on your blogs, and that is 80% of the world's data. Now, the insights which we need to get from this data is going to be more complicated because it needs a completely different way of handling the data. So if we really look at the entire what we call as an information management process, we're looking at the foundation of the entire data management, which is the standard and methodical ETL, which is the data extraction, data exploration, data cleansing, data enrichment, the data warehousing, maybe the data marting on the top of it. Data warehousing is basically a data model in which you keep the data for you to be able to access it. And data marts are the ones which is where the queries are going to hit first, and you need a query optimizer. So the whole paradigms are changing. The paradigms of data warehousing are changing. The paradigms in which we retrieve the data is changing. The way we stage the data is changing. And the reason it is changing, and it is going to keep changing, is what we sometimes call as the 5 V's of the big data and analytics. So I just talked about the volume, and the volume is exponentially growing. But it's not just about the volume. Let's look at the data, who is generating this data. So that's where we call it as a variety of data. So it could be coming from different sensors and actuators. You walk into any of the building, into your schools, into your offices, right from your badge access to that of your vehicle tracking systems, the different video cameras which are monitoring you. You come in and probably have the different accesses to the different labs or the different units that you really go visit. Any of these is generating a data which is a variety of data coming in from different sensors, different actuators. In any of the systems that we're talking of today, which is the Internet of Things or IoT, there is this variety of data coming in structured as well as unstructured format. Now, that is not all. We're also talking of a rate at which the data is pouring in. If you recall, a few years back, you probably had the first camera phone and you flaunted it, right, with pride, and that probably had maybe just a VGA kind of a camera, right? The VGA is that 840, 600 kind of a resolution. Today, probably you will be surprised, but we're talking of something like 12 megapixel, right, on your mobile, right? And that data, when you really upload into any of the digital media, maybe your WhatsApp, maybe your any of the groups that you really have and subscribe to, we're talking of a velocity or the rate at which the real-time data is pouring in. Now, why is it important, right? And I'll talk of two more V's per se, but the velocity is important because when you are really talking of the real-time transaction processing, either you talk of an OLAP workload or an OLTP workload. Take the simplest case of even the OLTP, which is structured data. Let's take an event which is all of us are very familiar with, right? And the event could be me going into any of the shops and swiping my credit card. Big deal, right? Because I probably have 3 credit cards, which all of you have. And within the city of Bangalore, maybe there are 1 million transactions happening in an hour, maybe more, right? And if you're talking of all the 29 states of India, I don't know how many transactions are happening all over India and all over the world. Now, how are you going to detect the fraud? The only way to detect is if my credit card is physically swiped after I transact in Bangalore within an hour in Delhi, it is a fraud. And the reason it is fraud is Concorde is grounded, right? So there is no way you can fly within less than an hour from Bangalore to Delhi. So that is the real-time transaction which needs to be captured at the time that it happened and not an hour later, right? If a terrorist is going to be boarding a plane, probably a wrong example given in a public forum, but from an intelligence department perspective, one needs to analyze and find out not for that suspect to board a plane. What's the point in stating that, well, there is a suspect on the plane and the plane is on the plane is in air? So that is where the real-time data analytics, handling this volume of data, the variety of the different sources from which the data is coming in, and the velocity at which you can handle the data. We're also going to talk about yet another V little later, and actually 2 more V's, and we call it a veracity of the data. And I'll tell you what this stands for, right? That's the uncertainty of the data which we really live in today. So that's primarily, if you really look at the CX overview over here, you can look at any of the business leaders, most of the clients that we talk to today in any of the businesses, analytics is right on the top of the agenda, and rightfully so. So any way you really look at your transactions that you do today, I'll give you just a couple of examples over here, and the example speaks volumes over here. In the last World Cup, when Germany was playing the final match, little that it may be known, but predictive analytics was used profusely in order to find out what is the biggest propensity to win the match and what is the best strategy to go around it. And what they found is, if you can really have lesser possession of the ball, even if it is lesser, but if you can have shorter passes and more frequent passes against the team that they're playing, the propensity of winning is highest. We are looking at analytics when there are 2 political parties which are trying to decide whether they're going to actually form a government together or whether they're going to not form a government together. We're talking of a civic unrest. We're talking of a security in a city. Before there is a civic unrest which is going to erupt, there is the share of voice analytic and the sentiment analytic which is done. Share of voices, what are people talking about it, right? Is it good, bad, ugly? It doesn't matter, but people are talking about something. And when they're talking about something, what is the context in which they're speaking? And that becomes the sentiment. And if the sentiment is erupting in a digital media, maybe there is a civic unrest for what is the reason which is going to happen. The police force needs to be deployed there before it actually happens. The same thing, if I give one last example in the commerce business, just a few days back I was trying to buy a certain movie and trying to pre-book Interstellar. Interstellar is one of the movies which is going to be digitally launched in April, and I pre-booked it. But when I looked at it, the first thing which really came up over there was the fact that maybe you are interested in these 4 items as well. Maybe there is something else that you could buy, right? And I might as well buy that. So there is more targeted promotion which is being offered to me based on my profile, based on my buying history, based on the interest which are judged, right? As we say sometimes jovially, the biggest crime that you would do in a digital media today is to abandon your shopping cart, because you'll be haunted by that at least for the next quarter, right? Because they really want you to buy it and you abandon your shopping cart, right? So that's mostly what we see as a sentiment coming in from the CIOs and the CEOs. So with that, if I go into the next slide, more or less this is the world that we're living in, right? We are living in a world where there are 30 billion RFID tags. It could be a tag in your vehicle when you do easy pass on a Tapansi Bridge across the Hudson River in New York, or it could be RFID tag which is attached to your healthcare product to ensure that the product or vaccine, right from the manufacturer to the dead end, is actually preserved and this is going through a particular temperature control, so the vaccine is still alive and kicking, right? And it's not dead. We're talking of 12 terabytes of Twitter data coming in every single day, right? And that is the volume that we're talking about. And many of these Twitter data, as I said earlier, is unstructured data. Similarly, the GPS enabled, right? The tracking is not just about a map finder. It's about trying to track the goods and services together. And it's a services-led market today when the products get commoditized. We are really looking at how everything else is going to change and has been changing. I would very unlikely to go to a movie and spend 3 hours unless I see a social rating. So gone are the days when there is one of the most famous actors or actresses asking me to buy a product. I won't trust them today. I will trust the people whom I don't know. And I will go by the rating which is coming from a social rating, right? So that's exactly what is the sentiment that we're talking here. And that is the kind of a burgeoning space in which the data is just pouring in through the Internet of Things in instrumented, interconnected, and intelligent world. So this is the fourth V in the slide number 4 that I want to talk about. So after having spoken about the volume and the velocity and the variety, here is the fourth component, which has become a very serious component as we really look at the predictability of data. So I'll be talking of analytics a little later as we really go further. But to give a very quick glimpse of what we mean by the uncertainty and inconsistency and ambiguity of data, let's take the simplest of the example, which is what the Indian government was trying to do probably about half a decade back, which was the UID project or Aadhaar project, right? If I could really give you a few of the glimpses of that, there is a name which is called, let's take Rajesh Verma, or take something like Jaswinder Singh. I don't know how many Jaswinder Singhs exist in Punjab or in India. They could be probably about a couple of thousand. And then the address is going to be something which is near Shivalaya temple in Tumkur. I don't know how many Tumkurs exist and how many Shivalaya temples exist over here. So what exactly does that data give me as an information? If I have to establish an entity that this is the Jaswinder Singh that I'm looking for, I need to wade through the maze of multiple data sources and try to make a sense out of it. As humans, if you really throw all of the data into me, maybe I'll try to make some sense out of it. We want that to be embedded into the machine learning now, right? We are really looking at the cognitive abilities. We are looking at the affective abilities coming into the computing through the unstructured data analytics, where we start to establish something as a fact, something as an entity, and then we start associating the entity and analyzing the entity, which is the whole entity association analytics, which will probably give you a unique entity identity. And that is what we call as the global name recognition. So we have the products within the stables of IBM, which no matter whether you write your name in Chinese or Japanese or Italian, and no matter how difficult the names are, I'll give you a name of one of my friends. His real name is Parkala Shivasai Lakshmi Narasimurthy, PVSSN Murthy. He's my friend in IIT. How many different variants in which he can write his name? But then we need to identify that as a unique entity. So that's the veracity of a data, that's the uncertainty of a data, because you can't take it at face value. And that's another challenge which we see in the entire digital media, right? You can't just infer an entity relationship unless you really go through and sift through multiple data sources and then try to establish that as a relationship. So the whole traditional approaches in which we were doing the information processing completely changes here. The way we create data models changes, the way we create data marts changes, the way we cleanse the data, the way we transform the data, the way we enrich the data, the way we handle the data, all of it really changes in the whole paradigm of the big data. So it's not a traditional approach in which you can work with the information management and the data management anymore. It's going to be completely different. So take probably biological data. And what are the different spheres and different opportunities? You know, the reason we call it the biggest natural resource are the untapped opportunities that you have from two sources of data, which is the data at rest and the data in motion. The data in motion is the data in velocity, which is pouring in at real time. And we just talked about the fraud management, we just talked about the intelligence management or the commerce management, in which you really need to handle the data which is in real time, which is data in motion, and then there is a plethora of data that you have. But then the reality is, what good is the data unless you have the insights into the data? So we are talking of 3 layers over here. which is the system of records. The system of records is the data that you have. To that of a system of engagement, where you start correlating the data, convoluting the data, correlating different various meanings to that data, and then that gives you the meaningful insights that you can use for business purpose. Unless you have the insights into the data truly is useless. So I'll give an example probably which is the simplest one in the commerce space. There is a lot of analysis which is being done today, not just to see the propensity of somebody buying a certain product, which is based on my profile. If it is established based on my buying behavior, based on my social status, based on the companies that I work for, maybe there is a certain pattern I exhibit, and that pattern needs to be established first. And that pattern could then reveal that there is a good possibility that if there is a good Van Heusen shirt or maybe Levi's jeans, whatever promotion being launched, I could be the one. Or there is a certain class of movies that I watch, right? But we are also talking of something which is now having two different businesses coming together. So just a couple of days back, I was trying to buy a toothpaste for 10 rupees, which is a travel kit, and there was a coupon inside which says that here is some promotion which is from mobility space. So completely different businesses. It's not just the travel and transportation and hospitality business. We're talking of a business which is a fast mover consumer goods to that of the entire telecom business coming together. The telecom business would like to ensure that the customer retentivity is maintained based on something called a call pattern analysis. There is a certain way in which I use calling pattern, and if that calling pattern changes, there needs to be personalized promotion which needs to be offered to me, which is not the same promotion which is given to my friend Madhu. It's a promotion which is especially for me. In healthcare, we're talking of so many businesses coming together, right? Today it sounds ridiculous, tomorrow it will not. Tomorrow it's going to change. And that is where there are different business opportunities which are coming in, right? So if I just give one simple example over here, today I really look at the phone and I almost beat my head every time because I have to enter a password. Today it looks common that we can enter the password. Tomorrow, maybe I should take my mobile, look at it, it should recognize my face, unstructured data analytics, and it should just turn on, right? In healthcare, ridiculous it may sound, but based on some stupid questions which are asked to us, which is, how old are you? And then the questions which are asked, well, what are your habits? And they decide on insurance. It should really be based on my genomic pattern. It should really be based on my history of hospitalization, history of diseases, right? It could be, today we have the mechanism to capture that with HL7, with the HIPAA coming in, with the entire DDBJ kind of science, which is giving the entire genomic pattern for the last couple of thousand years, could clearly establish what is the kind of a health condition that I should be enjoying and I'm enjoying today because it's something that I inherited and my insurance should change. Based on the way I drive my car and the distance that I drive my car and the number of times that I take out my car through GPS tracking, somebody should be able to give me a personalized promotion for my vehicle insurance. It doesn't happen today, it will happen tomorrow. So that's exactly the space that we're talking about. So I just talked about the slide number 5, so I'll probably skip that. But the 5th V, which I'm actually established over here, having spoken about the 4th V, which is the veracity, the 5th V is the visibility of the data. So when you talk of a system of insights, coming from system of records to system of engagement to system of insights, we're talking of the visualization that you're going to get in a data for you to be able to do slice and dice of a data, for you to be able to do what-if analysis and predictive analysis. Why is it important? I need to be able to establish if I have to get rid of an inventory. I need to be able to establish what's the best promotion. So if I'm Mr. Biani, and if I have to decide in Diwali or in 26 January or whatever, I'm going to launch a promotion, what's the best promotion on a certain product? Is it buy one get one free? Is it buy two get one free? Is it 20% discount? Is it 30% discount? What is it, right? Or is it Midnight Matinee Express? Is it Red Dot Express Sale? What is it? So there has to be a way for me to be able to predict and project what is that inflection point at which my cost of acquisition or my cost of purchase and my entire GP or the gross profit margin is cutting even somewhere, and I still make a profit based on the volume. And then I can have the supply chain optimization, the back-end processing optimization, the business process optimization, but all of it has to be linked to some statistical predictive methodology, which is where we talk of predictive And again, visibility is important from that perspective, which also includes the what-if analysis. So going on to slide 6, when we really look at this multitude of the data sources, you can see anyway, and I'm just going to pick one single example over here, which is, let's say, detecting of the life-threatening conditions of the hospitals in real time for somebody to intervene and probably give telemedicine. Somebody giving personalized medicine. Doesn't happen today, but it's going to happen tomorrow. And the reason it is important is how ridiculous that it may sound tomorrow if I go and tell my children, or probably my grandchildren, that, when I was young, I used to go to a doctor, and the doctor would ask me, tell me what has happened to you. Right? Well, I mean, if I knew what has happened to me, I should have been called a doctor myself. And then the second question, are you allergic to any medicine? As if I tried every medicine in the world, we have get a list of it, and I'll tell you that, well, there is cyclofloxacin hydrochloride that I'm allergic to. How on earth would I know about it, right? And then you know what the doctors do? I mean, nothing against medical profession. That's the way the state of affairs are today. But there is medicine which will be administered to me, and probably I'll be asked to come after 2 days. Come after 2 days and show it to me. Why after 2 days? Because they want to see how the drug is reacting on you to change the quanta or to change the medicine. It should be so obvious based on my genomic pattern, based on my history, that I should be allergic to this even if I never tried the medicine. There should be personalized medicine which should be offered to me, which will work just for me. That's the medicine for Amol and not for Madhu, right? So we are really looking at how different new insights is going to change the world from the big data and from an analytic perspective. One last slide on the big data over here, which is what are the business drivers. So if you just focus on the graph over here on the left-hand side, I guess it has come up on the screens now. We're talking of the decision frequency going from occasional, frequent to real time, coming from an year to millisecond to nanosecond to microsecond, to the scale of the data, right? Coming from petabyte to exabyte to zettabyte to yottabyte, and probably there'll be another word coming in a little later. But this is important, right? Maybe I'll take a detour and tell you why I said that the way we're going to handle the data and the way we do handle the data has changed and is changing. Gone are the days again, if I would say that I need to do this real-time analytics of all of the CDR or the call data records. We're talking of the data center of one of the companies in New Delhi, which is so damn huge that to power the data center for 1 day, if there is an electricity failure, we need a train load of a diesel. That is the size of a data center today, right? Each of the data center 42U racks, as you know, not frames, but the racks, consumes nothing less than 15 kilowatt of power at 1 power factor. And power factor is 1, right? So we're really talking of that complexity, that data, and then you're talking of analyzing real time. So we change the paradigms. We change with something called smart analytic systems. We change the paradigm with something called a PDA, or the pure data of analytics, or NETISA, where there is a completely different I/O output rate of your storage. The whole paradigm for storage is changing to SSDs, or the solid state devices, which can have random access, which gives better IOPS, which gives more parallel processing capabilities to FPGAs as against that of the conventional processors, which are just designed to do some small thing in real time at much better pace. And these are the change in the paradigms which are catering to the needs of the businesses today, because that gives a different business opportunity, different business insight, and that's going to use the lives as we really go, right? So again, as you really look at it, we are looking at a mixed load here, which is a structured, unstructured data, the simple to the complex analytics. The analytics could be as simple as a simple query that you really write, and that still is an analytic. And they could be different visualizer. They could be a bubble chart and a radar chart, or whichever the multi-dimensional data representation that we talk about. The reason I say multi-dimensional data representation is it's not just the 3 dimensions that we talk about. You're talking about multiple dimensions in which the data can be sliced and diced. And then you can do a what-if analysis, which is what will happen if I do a certain parameter change? What will be the result of it? And that then leads to the predictive behavior or the statistical behavior. And that typically is more complex problem when you try to apply to the big data. And that is where we're talking of a scale, the frequency, both for the data at rest as well as data in motion, because there is this entity association. where data in motion is to be correlated with data at rest. Somebody leaving a packet in one of the platforms of Mumbai and walking to the restroom and not coming out for half an hour is just an event. If similar event is happening in real time at yet another railway platform somewhere in the vicinity of the other, and if same behavior is exhibited, correlation of an event could lead to maybe security intelligence, right? Maybe it is intentional. Maybe it is not, but it's suspicious behavior. So we're really talking of multiple things that will unfold, and that is unfolding in changing the way we live. With that, from the big data, I'm going to quickly move into the whole analytic part of it. So when we talk of the analytics, here is a quick glimpse of it. I'll just see if the slide is loaded. Yeah, the slide is loaded. So let me take a quick glimpse of the whole analytics. So what you see on the left-hand side is, again, the different data sources, a variety of data which is coming in, again, coming real time from multiple line of businesses. What is the whole analytics all about, right? And why do we really need analysis? That is basically to get answers to the key business questions. It is to get the insight into the data to manage your business today, as well as to look at a completely different, unprecedented business opportunity which did not exist yesterday, which absolutely did not even exist yesterday. It's a new business, right? The new business, was there a restaurant finder earlier which probably, based on whether it is phobia or whether it is Pizza Hut, whatever that I'm looking for, based on my social behavior, will probably tell me, along with the real-time GPS tracking, that appears that this is a lunchtime. I know that you just gotten down from the train, which means you probably didn't have lunch because there is no pantry car in the train anymore, and you are actually going on this road, and then there's a Pizza Hut nearby. And maybe I get a personalized promotion as an SMS that I can actually deliver to you at this junction. Completely new business opportunity. It didn't exist yesterday. It's a correlation of all of this data, right? That's more personalized. So we're talking of four things over here, which is first is data exploration and discovery, right on a top bubble. What is the data discovery and exploration, which is what is happening? There is something which has happened. My business is not giving me profitability. That is what has happened, right? Or some particular product is not moving in a commerce business away from the rack. That is what has happened. From there, come on clockwise direction, which is why did it happen? Which is the whole reporting and analytic part. Why did it happen? Now we are still talking about data at rest. So we are looking at, well, my profitability for a certain quarter, for a certain month, for a certain product fell down. Why did it happen? Is it because the supply chain management is wrong? Is it because I didn't place the right product at the right place? I mean, Pizza Hut will work only at Koramangala region, in Bangalore maybe, but it will not work probably if I go to some small gram nearby. So is it a product being placed in the right place? So why did it happen, right? It's equally important for me to find. It may be nothing wrong with the product. It may be just the placement. It may be supply chain management that needs to be optimized. From why did it happen, we can come to another very important factor, which is the slice and dice and analytic and modeling, which is predictive part, which is literally gazing at a crystal ball to see what will happen or what could happen if I do certain things in a certain way. So that is where the predictive analytics, we have a product called SPSS, which basically has multiple statistical algorithmic thing. Now I'm a little careful over here because we're really going into this niche area of artificial intelligence, machine learning, cognitive computing, affective computing, all of that, which works on structured and unstructured data. In unstructured data, we're looking at lexical parsing, we're looking at hashtagging, so we're looking at, again, the segment analysis, and then probably trying to have correlation for us to be able to conclude something, and then coming and relating it to the structured data in real time as well as data at rest to really analyze and say, here is a statistical predictive way to project it in future to see what could happen. And then the last one is, now what business decision do I take? Is that the right decision? Because you got multiple choices. One wrong decision today, at least today's world, can wipe this company off the face of the earth in maybe less than a matter of a year, right? There are companies who invented digital cameras who are not existing in the world today. There was a company which is, I don't want to name in a public forum, but all of my colleagues 5 years back had the phones from one single company, right? That was a European company. And today, nobody, I mean, it has become an antique piece to an extent that it has a different charger. It's not one of the Samsung chargers. I went to a shop asking for a charger, and he said, I'll get it to you tomorrow. I mean, that's the reality, right? It doesn't take more than a year or two if you're not doing the right business analytics for you to be wiped off the face of the earth. So that's exactly what we'll be talking about, delivering insight at the point of impact. So if I move into my next slide, which is slide number 9, I'm onto the first blurb here, which is the data discovery and data exploration. You can see multiple graphs and charts, which may not be extremely visible over here. But here we are talking about decision tree. We're talking about the different job role versus attrition. So if you really look at any of the analytics, which is how many employees do I get in an organization? Of those employees, what is the propensity of an employee coming from a certain city? Would I actually recruit in Bangalore students coming in from Delhi or from MP or from Assam? I need to be able to do analytics to find out what are the problems that the students are going to face once they really join, and what is the propensity of them probably staying over here, right? So first I need to know what is happening. Is there attrition which is above par? What do I need to do about it is later, but at least I need to find what is happening. Similarly, I talked about the analytic catalyst or accelerator, which is a statistical modeling through which we can try and find, slice and dice the data to look at the data discovery and exploration. I'll move on to the next one for the paucity of time. I'm going to probably show up in the next 6 minutes on why did it happen. Now, here is an important visualization aspect here as well for me to get or gain more complete answers, more complete insight into business. And I'm still looking at why did it happen. My profitability failed in the business. So we're talking of dynamic cubes or TM1 over here. If you're looking at glancing at the bottom left over here, which is basically looking at multi-dimensional queries, and that's what I stressed earlier, which is multi-dimensional data representation, for me to look at a holistic view of the data to find out why did it happen. And there may not be a single source over here. There may not be a simple answer and a single answer over here. It could be a compounded answer, or it could be a related answer, which will then encompass maybe 5 or 6 or 10 different entities together on why a certain thing has happened. And that is an insight which I need for me to then be able to take the right business decision. So this is about why did it happen, which is reporting and analysis. Again, the fifth V becomes extremely important over here, which is visibility of data after coming from the veracity of data. So I'm going to move on yet another one, which is the slide 11. I'll give it a second for it to populate on your screen. Oops, yeah. So which is the predictive analytics. Now this is a very important upcoming niche in the new area. And particularly when you talk of a big data, when you talk of the entire Hadoop, when you talk of the shared file systems like HDFS, when you talk of the compute resources which are fairly cheap today, which can be exploited for me to be able to do MapReduce, which is for me to be able to diverse the job into multiple nodes, and which are probably commercial, cheaper nodes, rather than looking at much niche faster systems, one single system doing the entire analytics for me. I can use the MapReduce, collect the results back again, and exploit the whole paradigm of the Apache Hadoop and use that to do the what-if analysis. And the next one is going to be the statistical modeling, which is what you see over here, which is a little globe over here, which has got multiple connects. So this could be a neural network system. And what is the depiction over here is kind of a neural network. Neural networks, as you know, there are multiple models of neural networks. It's kind of a modeling of the brain neurons, the way they get connected or interconnected, and how each neuron can talk to multiple other neurons. So it could be the Hopfield model. There are multiple models in neural networks. Same thing in an expert system or fuzzy logic system or artificial intelligence system. So we're looking at, again, the propensity of we trying to statistically predict what will happen and project the kind of a curve which will give you those business insights. So that's basically what you're talking. There are other products in the market other than SPSS, which is mentioned over here, which do the modeling. As we really change the whole paradigms in which we're looking at the data, we're looking at the data exploration, the data discovery, the data analysis. It's not just the PDA as an example, which is an appliance which I gave, but the way to do data enrichment, the way we handle the data, the way we create a data model, all of it becomes very important. So it's not just the conventional traditional data modeling that we're talking about. It's a different business analytic modeling. It's the business intelligence modeling that we're talking about. So the data models have come up from the data warehouse to that of the data mass, to that of the BI modeling or the BA modeling, to that of predictive modeling. And when we have the right models, that is where you get a faster query response for you to be able to handle the data in real time. So on the last slide, on the slide number 12, here is based on all analysis that we've done, what is an action that I'm going to take, right? We talked about the German team, which was really trying to find out what is the best way for me to win the World Cup. We're talking about maybe, the political union that has happened. I don't want to name it in the public forum, but if we think that one of these, two parties coming together in the recent past, if it fell apart and they still won the election, if you think that that was at the spur of a moment, some leader decided that, we're all wrong. There is a lot of predictive analytics which has gone into it for them to be able to predict what could happen even if I really don't join hands with a certain political party, and then they probably had the results, right? So that is changing the lives today, the way we live today, and it is poised to change the lives the way we're going to live tomorrow. I'm going to talk about a few of the use cases as we really go into the next slide. But if you really look at what action should I take, primarily it's not the data, it is the insights into the data which will let you decide the right promotion to be given to me based on my call handling, based on my CDR analysis. It's about the right promotion being launched into the commerce segment. It's about the right businesses being interlinked together to make better profits. It's about the right intelligence being given and delivered in real time for somebody not to be boarding a plane, or somebody sending more police force to see if there is some civic unrest which could happen. And that is exactly the decision management coming in from the entire big data and analytics space. There are a few use cases, and more or less I kind of talked about it, so I don't want to dwell too much about it. Let me go on to my last slide, which is slide 14, again with kind of a paucity. You pick up any of these examples, right? In these use cases, and this is not a conference release by any means, right? May it be the governance, travel and transportation, consumer products, healthcare, automotive. You pick any industry. I'll give an example which we just talked about in petroleum business, right? So we're working with, so it's a little unconventional. The way the oil wells work is, it's not an oil well that you can keep digging and you can keep extracting. There is a real-time function which needs to be applied to each oil well or oil rig for you to extract, because it's not the more you extract, the more you actually get. You have to have a moderate function in which you have to extract. If you extract too much, it dries away. If you extract too low, your output decreases. So which is that function that you really have to apply into each of the oil rig in Bombay or anywhere else, right? I'm talking of a French company which I don't want to name, but you know what we did? We actually had the cams, which are the seashells, which are the natural resource, literally natural resource. And the reason I picked up is I started my presentation with big data being the biggest natural resource today for us to exploit. I'm going to end up with another natural resource which really truly exploited, where we had these cams embedded with the sensors which were all over the seabed. And they understand the changes in the temperature and pressure, which actually can affect the rate at which you can pull the oil. And all of these sensors together, when we analyze it, will tell us or predict what is the best optimal point at which each of the oil extraction from individual rigs should be taken. Think of a technology, think of a natural resource, and think of how better utilization that you can do in your oil production, in your banking industry, in your personalized insurance, may it be car insurance, may it be health insurance, may it be telemedicine, may it be personal medicine, right? Or the CDRs in telco. So I don't plan to go through each one of these. I would like to wrap up with this, and I'll probably take more questions, have more interactive discussion. Suffice it to say that We are looking at, and we are in a world today where if Facebook was a country, it was the biggest country in the world. We're talking of, I use this same, the same catchy phrase, if you will, 5 years back when Facebook was 350 million. We're talking of more than a billion. We're talking of 2 billion people in this world who are connected today on the internet. We're talking of number of mobile phones which are more than the number of people in the world. In this Internet of Things, in this era, the rate or the exponential rate at which the data is exploding, we are poised not just for growth, but for bigger challenges. But at each challenges, we have the right technologies from the big data and analytics, which also exposes different business opportunities that we can embrace and we can exploit. So with that, I'm going to take a pause, take a breather, and probably take any questions which may have come in.
Thank you, Amol. Thanks for the insightful presentation. I would request you to take up the questions now and please read the questions and their answers so that all our users may listen to your commendable insights.
So I have quite a few questions which came up on pane over here. So I'm going to probably, let's start with, I probably start with something which is random. Do you think data for some is noise for many and vice versa is a big challenge in big data processing? If so, how can we overcome it while processing big data? This comes from Ashish Kataria. So let me read it again so I myself comprehend. Do you think data for some is noise for many and vice versa is a big data challenge? I think I get the question. So here is a challenge that we got, particularly in unstructured data. And one of the examples that I was giving you is the whole notion of single identity of a citizen, right? Unique identity of a citizen. How do I really establish a unique identity of a citizen? Now, when I really start looking at unstructured content of the data, there is a lot of noise which is going to be there. So if you look at Twitter data, if you look at blogs, there are going to be this kind of, the sentiment which is going to be reflecting positive and negative. I can't take anything at a face value. And no matter which kind of an intelligent filtering that I start using over there, somewhere there is a good possibility that I'll go wrong, right? Somebody is probably saying that, well, there is a product which is sold by this department store which expired. Maybe the expired word is not at all related to the product. Maybe it is related to something which is completely different in that the entire text. And he was saying that I went to buy something and my credit card expired. We don't know, right? We can't necessarily establish that. So there is a lot of data that we have, particularly in unstructured. And unfortunately, as I said, there's 80% data which is unstructured. And this technology is evolving. It is not done and down yet. There are multiple challenges in unstructured data handling. And when we look at any statistical predictability or AI system, as you know, the success of that system is only related to how you train that system. Any of the AI or any of the cognitive system is basically going to start learning. If you overteach that, it overlearns and it stops thinking. And it basically is going to have ringing and overshooting. And you only have to balance the ringing. And as long as you keep it into what we call as, at the 1 sigma level, you still have better propensity or statistical probability of a prediction of a result. So it is a fuzzy space. There are challenges. Did you overcome it all? Certainly not. Is the technology evolving every single day to probably do something different? In machine learning space or cognitive computing? Yes, it is. So that probably is a little fuzzy answer, but long story short, Ashish, it's evolving. Let me take another one, which is what are the popular tools to implement big data? So when you talk of big data, I would talk of the different technologies and products over here. May it be the Hive or the Jackwell or a Pig or the HBase or the HDFS. This basically is the Apache Hadoop implementation, which anybody does. So within IBM, we have something called InfoSphere Big Insights, which is the Apache Hadoop implementation. And primarily, if you really look at, this is a question which came from Sushant Mishra. So Sushant primarily, there are open source tools. There are tools from the stables of IBM. So while I talk of SPSS, I can talk of R or Evolution as yet another predictive analytics, right? When you talk of something which is the pure data for analytics or pure data for operation analytics for warehouse, there are products from Oracle, there are products from multiple other vendors which are coming into the market. I may know more of IBM products because I work on them, but they are open source or products from big data as well. Primarily, it's an implementation on a general pilot file system, which is HDFS, where you have MapReduce, where you have an ability for you to be able to dispense your problem statement to multiple nodes, and you have a way to collect the results back again. And that's the way the big data works. And that primarily is the technology being implemented by multiple vendors. You call it tools, you call it products, you call it solutions. And there are plenty of those. There are plenty from Infosphere Big Insights, which is from the stables of IBM, which again are all of these, right? So the technologies, as I said, right? Whether it is HBase or Jackpot or Pig, what have you. Let me move on to the next question. There are quite a few, so I'm going to pick at random. What exactly big data is, and is it a concept or a tool? How as a developer I use it with different programming languages? It came from Anil Verma. So Anil, the whole big data is the advent of the volume, velocity, variety, and veracity of a data, right? So in my view, that is the simplest definition of what is a big data. The big data is big in volume, the big data is big in variety, and the big data is big in the real-time sense because it is coming at the real-time or data in motion. And that is a problem by itself. If you really look at yesteryears, when you and me were much younger, we didn't have this problem. The number of transactions were less, the number of internet connections were less. I'm looking at a world when there wasn't even a browser. And obviously, the number of interconnected nodes and the Internet of Things didn't even exist. So there wasn't a data as big as exabytes. And that, simply put, is a big data. Is it a tool? No, it's not a tool. It's basically the characteristic of a data which we need to handle to manage our businesses better and also to gain insights into that data for us to create new business opportunities for future. So it's not a tool, it's a technology in which we handle it. Is data by itself a tool? No. The data is just a resource. And the reason I started calling it as the biggest natural resource is because it's in abundance and it's available for us to mine. The way you mine minerals, we are mining data today to get bigger insight and bigger profitability. As a developer, can I use it in different programming languages? Yeah, I mean, there are different programming paradigms rather than languages, I would say. And the programming paradigms are related to the whole technologies of the data warehousing or the data marting. And what are the paradigms I'm talking about? You can talk about any of the paradigms which are traditional, untraditional. We're talking about the binary large objects being into the warehouse or linked to the warehouse. We are looking at whether you use any of the database technologies, may it be the SQL database technology or the NoSQL database technology or any open source like MongoDB. There are different technologies. All of it can be applied. All of it is suitable. It all depends on what is the problem that you're solving and how do you want to solve it. There is no one single unique way of handling it and no one single vendor which is offering it either. So let me move on to another one. There are quite a few questions, so let me pick up another one. I'm just kind of glancing through to see which one do you really want to pick up. Okay, I'll pick up this one. If one wants to enter into the predictive analytics field for who is experienced in the field like genomics, what skill sets needs to be acquired? This comes from Swapna Velanki. So Swapna, it's a great question, right? If one wants to enter into the predictive analytics field with an experience in genomics, what do I need to do? So I'll give my view without being a genomic expert. But let's look at this possibility, right? I talked about a few of the things earlier. There are data sources. For instance, you know it better than me, Swapna, but there are DDBJ data source, for instance, which comes, I believe, from Japan, which is the entire genomic data source. we had something called World Community Grid, which basically was a project in which we can take a swab from your cheek, send it out to IBM, and IBM research will try and route it back to the African origins. All of us are Africans in a way, and obviously over the last 5 million years or multi-million years, since the mankind came into existence, things have changed in the genomic patterns, right? Based on the environmental conditions and based on the whole Darwinian theory of the sustenance, right? So my immunity, my predictability of probably how I'm going to respond to a particular virus, to a particular bacteria, or to a particular drug molecule is going to be based on my genomic pattern. And now let's look at if all the hospitals are HL7 compliant, we won't call yellow fever anymore. We'll have more scientific name given to it. And if all these hospitals are linked together, along with the health insurance companies, along with the drug discovery is basically the clinical trial process. If the clinical trials done on the mammals and done on the any of the human beings, if that can be linked to all of this propensity of your reaction of a drug molecule to a certain immune system can be analyzed upfront, you have a completely different era which is going to come up, which will keep you more fit proactively. So we are talking of reactive to proactive to predictive to preventive, and I can soon have a preventive medicine, Swapna, and that's the world that we're going to live in for tomorrow. So very good question. Again, I'm not from genomics field, so you know it better than me, but certainly an interesting question. Maybe I'll take one last question. I realize that we're almost at the top of an hour. Do you see big data analytics having a scope in higher education by Sheshashai? So, Sesha, absolutely. The big data and analytics is a scope for research, is a scope for higher education. I'll give one simplest example over here. I mentioned few of the words in between, though I didn't really dwell too much on that, right? When you talk of the predictive analytics, I did coin in another buzzword called cognitive computing, right? And that's where the neural networks come in. The whole cognitive ability is when I'm really looking at Bombay VT railway platform, or I'll give simpler examples than that, right? There is a completely new person who is coming and greeting me. I start analyzing that face, the body movement, the body language, right? And start predicting something. That's a cognitive ability. If you're not aware, if you walk into Las Vegas, into either Bellagio or into Caesar's Palace or Palazzo or anywhere, right? Or Hurras maybe, there are people who are actually watching through the cameras in looking at the way you carry yourself, the way you dress yourself up, how confident are you, what are the body language gestures. There are too many things coming to picture here, and all of this is unstructured data. But based on all of that, we have an ability to be able to predict how much money you're going to lose. And if I know that you are a rich guy with deep pockets, you're going to lose a lot of money, I'm going to show you with mercs and all the beer and probably smoke and all of it to make sure that you stay in my casino and don't go to other casino because I'm going to be profitable, right? This is the entire cognitive ability. But this is the reality, by the way. But if you are really looking at telemedicine today, where in the rural areas of India, we can really get the telemedicine, the teleoperation, which can actually operate this cognitive ability through IBM Watson kind of a technology. It is an area of hot research. It is an area where you can do your master's, you can do your PhD, you can do your research. It is one of the best areas under the camps that you can think of it for higher education. You can pick up a research topic on that. So Sesha, you are on the right technology. Keep pushing your interest. I realize I have last 1 minute. I'm going to take a very quick question and probably shut up after that. Which one do I take, right? Is big data technology used in PLM domain or ERP domain by Rajan Pawar? So, absolutely right. As we looked at just the previous slide, slide number 14, this is touching all the walks of life. So it is pervasive, it is ubiquitous. So is it used in ERP, which is enterprise resource planning? Few of the examples that I gave in the commerce space or supply chain management, the back-end inventory management, the whole travel and transportation on SCM, or the enterprise resource planning, any SAP ERP domain, This technology is absolutely essential. I'll give one quick example. How often do we see that you walk into a store and you look for a particular good or a product which is a shoe? I went into Puma shop, I looked for a shoe, I liked it, size 6 wasn't available, my daughter was devastated. What is it? My size is not available. I went to another Puma shop and they didn't have that model at all, right? What is this problem really, right? Here is a customer who is buying, who is wanting to buy a 4,000 rupee shoe, but then the supply chain, inventory, or whichever way you look at the ERP systems, did not really look at propensity of a particular store and buyer behavior. So we are talking of ERP having a big role to use and exploit the big data and analytics. I'm pretty much exactly in the top of an hour. So thank you very much for giving me this opportunity. On behalf of IBM, I thank all of you. We have enough and more that I could have spoken to you, but for the paucity of time, this is all that I could really bring to you. But all that I want to say is, I started my presentation stating that it is the biggest natural resource. It is one of the biggest opportunity that we have in the world today for us to align our businesses, for us to exploit this technology, to see how the business is going to change, how our lives is going to change for the better. And I again wish you all the best if you are really looking at making a career in big data and analytics. And with that, thank you Times of India Group and TechGeek for giving us this opportunity.
Thank you so much, Amol. I'm really thankful to our guest speaker, Amol, for conducting this wonderful webinar. It was indeed a great session. I would also like to thank all our participants for their support in making this webinar a success. The recording of this webinar will be available on techgeek.com very soon. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you all. Good day.